I'm Taylor Kennedy, and coming up on Mountaineer Playbook, I'll tell you how one senior women's basketball player has cemented her name forever in the WVU women's basketball books.
I'm Will Aldrich, and coming up on Mountaineer Playbook, I'll tell you about a WVU baseball team with a higher preseason ranking than ever before.
I'm Mark Schoenster, and coming up next on Mountaineer Playbook, I'll tell you about a freshman who is juggling both cross country and track at the same time.
What's going on, everybody? We're back with a new edition of Mountaineer Playbook. I'm Ireland Viscount.
And I'm Mark Schoenster. We've got women's basketball, baseball, esports, and more coming your way on today's episode.
WVU women's head basketball coach Mike Carey has coached some of the more iconic names in the program history. Players like the Bolger sisters, Bria Holmes, and now Kaiser Gondrzik.
Taylor Kennedy is at the WVU Coliseum to dive into the legacy of Gondrzik's career in the Gold and Blue.
WVU women's head basketball coach Mike Carey has coached a plethora of legendary names here in Morgantown. The latest player to add her name to that list is senior Kaiser Gondrzik. Gondrzik transferred from the University of Michigan following her freshman season, and since then she has appeared in 52 career games, averaging 17 points per game, wearing the gold and blue. The Benton Harbor, Michigan native says that her relationship with former Mountaineer associate head coach Chester Nichols was a big reason in her coming to Morgantown.
Chester Nichols, at the time, was the associate head at West Virginia. He recruited me out of Michigan when I was in the 8th grade. He was the assistant coach at the University of Michigan. So I always kept that relationship with him. So when it was time to transfer, I was very private about it. He actually reached out and asked me to just consider coming to West Virginia.
Gondrzik ranks in the top 15 in 5 different career categories at WVU. Coach Carey credits Gondrzik's game to the overall success of this year's team.
Well, she meant a lot. She, not only scoring, she can assist, steals, rebounding, on and off the floor. I mean, she's meant a lot to Western University and has done a great job.
Gondrzik has been listed in a variety of WNBA mock drafts. She says that it's an honor to be listed among some of the top women's basketball players in the country. She also attributes it to the fact that professional scouts have been honing in on her overall game her senior season.
Sometimes, people have on their scouting reports, well, she's a scorer, she's a shooter. I think I'm both. And then I also think, too, that, my versatility and my IQ allows me to create for my teammates as much as I create for myself.
Gondrzik and Coach Carey's relationship has been strong this season, especially since Gondrzik lost her father earlier this season. She says that Carey has become more and more of a father figure ever since.
That's my father figure, especially now more than ever. He's taken that role, with the passing of my dad this year. So to be able to have that male figure and to be comfortable in a position where I can, acknowledge him as both, a father figure and my coach makes it a lot more comfortable for me to go out there and perform.
The Lady Mountaineers will go for their second Big 12 Conference Championship in program history starting March 11th. Taylor Kennedy, Mountaineer Playbook, Morgantown.
Kaiser has been an absolute thrill to watch these past few seasons. And although basketball season is winding down, baseball season is just getting started. Following a 7-day COVID-19 layoff, the West Virginia baseball team is set to continue their non-conference schedule, starting Thursday night with a 3-game series against Central Michigan.
Will Aldridge is at Mon County Ballpark to let you know about the rise that the program has made throughout the last few years. This has resulted in annual success.
When Randy Mazey took the helm of the WVU baseball team for the 2013 season, they were coming off an 11th place finish in the Big East. 9 years later, the Mountaineers have ushered in a state-of-the-art facility, partnering with the Pittsburgh Pirates affiliate West Virginia Black Bears. They've also helped close to 30 student-athletes get drafted, and this season started with the highest preseason ranking in program history, coming in at number 14.
Things have changed a little bit. It's, as you guys know, West Virginia always fighting for national respect, and when you get some, it's like you got to reverse strategies and teach them that, you know, if you're going to be ranked that high and people think that highly of you, then you can't afford to ever take a day off from trying to be that good.
Entering the national spotlight on a regular basis, the Mountaineers have had recent postseason success to match their hard work. A new facility in 2015 paired with an NCAA regional host in 2019 have paired to build a recruiting class that ranks as the top in program history.
A major factor for the recruiting class are the new facilities on campus. Located in Granville, Monongalia County Ballpark opened in 2015 with the stadium, team room, training room, batting cages, and more.
While the national ranking has proved major strides for the program, Mazey admits the level of competition around the NCAA will be much higher this season due to draft-eligible players from last season returning for one more due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, there's no doubt that baseball this year is going to be way better, even from the mid-major teams that, you know, still hung on to a guy that might have been a, you know, 22nd round pick, you know, that was a really good senior pitcher that didn't get drafted, didn't sign as a free agent. Now he's back. So I think the level of baseball in general is going to be a lot better.
Despite the middling start to the season, the Mountaineers are still in non-conference play, meaning the season still remains wide open with key ranked matchups looming in the future against TCU, Texas Tech, Texas, and Oklahoma. Will Aldrich, Mountaineer Playbook, Morgantown.
Typically, the NCAA cross-country schedule does not conflict with the track and field schedule, but this season, both are happening in the spring. Mark has the story about one athlete competing for both teams at the same time.
The saying goes, it's a marathon, not a sprint. But is that applicable when you're training for both at the same time? Redshirt freshman Kaylee McCabe is in that situation right now. But she seems to be doing just fine wearing two hats at once.
We can just take our fitness from cross country and then do a little bit of speed and then be ready for the indoor season. And so I think for us, that's just been kind of more normal than I think for other teams maybe.
Not only is she comfortable, McCabe is currently performing at a high level and made some rounds on social media last weekend with her winning effort to finish the women's distance relay at the Big 12 meet.
I guess I knew with kind of 200 to go, like if I had the advantage because I was just behind her, and so I could kind of cover any move she was going to make. And so just sticking behind her as long as I possibly could, and then really just leaving it to the end. And Coach Cleary always just says to kind of trust your kick because you're going to stay in control that way. And it worked out. I mean, I guess you have to know not every time it's going to go that way, but it was lucky for me in that case.
Head coach of both teams, Sean Cleary, believes the combination of the two seasons has been a net positive for McCabe in particular. He says that she is in fantastic shape.
We have a situation where she's just been running just outstanding and hasn't yet been given the opportunity to run on what we would consider to be a really fast track at sea level. So I think there's even more in her. So if we get the call to go to the national championships indoors on that distance medley relay, I think she's really in a position to run a great race.
Whether either team makes the NCAA tourney remains to be seen. Should the opportunity arise, Kaylee seems ready for the opportunity. Mark Schoenster, Mountaineer Playbook, Morgantown.
Talk about a jam-packed semester for Kaylee McCabe. And not to mention, she still has 4 years of eligibility to race at WVU due to the current rules in place.
A great collegiate career is ahead of her, and we still got a great show ahead of us here on Mountaineer Playbook after this break.
I'm Ireland Viscount, and coming up next on Mountaineer Playbook, I'll recap the men's and women's swimming and diving team season and how they did in the Big 12 Championship.
I'm Caitlin Janda, and coming up on Mountaineer Playbook, I'm going to tell you guys about the 2 new transfers on the volleyball team, as well as the reboot of the 2020 season this month and the upcoming NCAA National Championship in April.
I'm Cole Pancake, and coming up on Mountaineer Playbook, I'm going to tell you about the sport of the future, and it's not lacrosse.
We conquer mountains, but that's not why they call us Mountaineers. It's because we don't let anything stand in our way. We build what's never been built, seek cures for the incurable, and go first into undiscovered frontiers. We are Mountaineers, and impossible is just another mountain to climb.
Welcome back to Mountaineer Playbook, WVU's student-produced sports show. Up next, we've got a story from my co-anchor Ireland Viscount about the Mountaineers' trip to the Big 12 Swimming and Diving Championship.
This year, the swimming and diving team headed to Texas for the Big 12 championships after a season of only a few meets. Things looked way different than last year due to COVID-19, but that didn't stop the Mountaineers. Senior Ryan Van Fake explains the goals he had for the season.
This was my final year, so it was kind of definitely a weird year with the whole COVID hitting this year. So my goals this year was pretty much just to end the season off on a good note and everything like that to just basically finish off strong.
The team has been training more this season than any other season due to things being so different. If you weren't in the pool, you were to wear your mask at all times and social distance. The swimming and diving team had a great season this past year, and even though the Big 12 championship just ended this year, as you can see behind me, they are starting to prepare for next year's season. Freshman Paige Dressel explains her goals for next year in the Big 12 championships.
Scoring more points at Big 12 next year than we did this year. I feel like we have a good group of people coming in, and our freshmen are really strong, so I feel like it's definitely possible for us to do good at Big 12s next year.
This year, the women placed 4th and the men placed 2nd in the Big 12 championships. West Virginia closed action by completing a new school record on the men's platform. Next year, West Virginia will be hosting the Big 12 championships at the Milan Aquatic Center for the second time.
In this 200 backstroke A final.
Release for the swimming and diving team. Now let's turn our attention to volleyball, which is looking to start their spring slate soon.
With a new season and new players, Caitlin Janda gives us a look at the team.
Despite the uncertainties this year due to COVID-19, as well as the postponement of the 2020 women's volleyball season, head coach Reed Sonahara was able to add 2 brand new transfers to his roster in January.
We definitely added value to what we already have, and I think with the 2 of them joining our program, we're better than we were in the fall. So, they add experience. Their IQs are really high. We add 2 more good arms to the front row.
Athena Ardella and Adrienne are already working toward their Mountaineer mentality with the rest of this season ahead of them.
The mindset and just for us to get used to this new culture and the coach's expectations, not only for us, but for the team day in and day out.
We get to actually get to know the team and get that chemistry down and work on connections with setters and everything like that.
The team will have their season renewed in March for 4 scheduled games. Coach Reed Sonahara shares his feelings about the postseason and looming NCAA championship.
I hope we play. I hope there is a postseason because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So it's great that we have an opportunity to keep practicing right now. And as we progress into our season, play matches. You look across the board, whether it's basketball, volleyball. There's so many cancellations that you wonder what's going to happen next. So with the NCAA tournament, I think as we speak, we're on the bubble because we're 8-8, and we play in a great conference, and that's a positive. But the negative is they're only taking 48 teams. It's not the standard 64 teams.
The WVU women's volleyball team will be making their comeback this month. The NCAA National Championship will be held in Omaha from April 13th to 24th in a bubble-style setting. I'm Caitlin Janda, Mountaineer Playbook, Morgantown.
Thanks, Caitlin. The Mountaineers went 8-8 in the Big 12 in the fall, but looking to improve their resumes starting this Friday at Western Kentucky. Now we are going to mix it up a bit with our next story.
The future of sports is here, and it's all virtual. We're going to kick it to Cole Pancake, who has more on the world of esports.
Electronic sports are rapidly becoming one of the most popular professional sports in the world, with franchises already established in multiple major U.S. cities and tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars up for grabs. However, the game is unlike any we've ever seen before, one where anyone with an internet connection can make the big time and the big money. And while esports are expanding in size, they still aren't an NCAA-regulated event. That hasn't stopped colleges from catching on and starting teams, though. The two biggest schools in West Virginia both have teams, and they've been facing off since the beginning of 2021. Marshall and WVU have been competing in an intramural esports tournament every 3 weeks, each time competing in a different video game. However, their first match in February was canceled due to COVID issues at Marshall. On March 10th, the two schools competed in a match of Among Us, where Damian Cummins of WVU took home the win to solidify a victory for the Mountaineers. To hear more about how the tournament is shaping up, I spoke with Travis Jacks, an assistant with the competitive sports department of WVU.
Transparent. It's really just a way to engage as many students as we can. We're trying to develop our intramural esports league here at West Virginia University, and we thought that this would be a really fun way to engage some students, offering a competition with another university, and it seemed to be pretty effective so far. We've really increased our numbers in terms of registration, so it's a fun event, but it's more so focused on building the program rather than the competition.
The teams will be facing off in one final match of Rocket League on March 31st. If Marshall wins, the series will be tied. However, if WVU sneaks out a victory, they will win the overall tournament, along with bragging rights of being the best in the state. You can watch the Thundering Herd and the Mountaineers face off in their final game by clicking the link below. I'm Cole Pancake, Mountaineer Playbook, Morgantown.
If you missed the link, just look up WVU Rec Sports on Twitch to find the channel. It should be worth a watch.
Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Mountaineer Playbook. I'm Ireland Viscount.
And I'm Mark Schoenster. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Thanks for watching.